All right, so if you're a gamer, you've probably heard the news. Hell, if you ain't a gamer, you've probably heard the news that Sony intends to kill physical copies of games by January 2028. I want to get into a little bit of that and bounce around on a couple topics pertaining to this. So this video is going to be a little all over the place, but hang with me. Shout out to Fox 35 Orlando for this initial video. Let's get into it.
Video game industry and fans and observers here when they announced it today that they're no longer going to make physical games for their PlayStation consoles starting in January 2028. So a big announcement here. We've talked recently about this kind of debate between physical media and digital media, and a big step in this conversation today. And so joining us live now to break this down for us, give us some perspective here as well. Pleased to be joined this morning by Khalif Adams, who is the CEO of Spawn on Me LLC. You may know him from his podcast. Khalif, thanks so much for joining us here on Fox 35 News Plus today.
Thanks so much for having me.
I have no idea who this guy is, but I will support him after this news segment for sure.
Excited to talk about all this madness that's happening in the world of video games and PlayStation today.
A huge announcement. Was this something that anybody expected or anyone saw coming at this point?
I think a lot of folks who have been paying attention and kind of reading the tea leaves have seen that there's going to be a particular kind of change in this space. I think with overall sales being down on physical media and, video gamers now wanting things at their fingertips at all times, this kind of makes that transition not only easier for the platform holders, but gives a space for folks who are really excited about that digital landscape, some excitement for them. But the folks who are
real quick to the point that he just said, there have been, I'm a huge gamer, and throughout the past 5-10 years there have been a lot of instances of these video game developers abusing their player base via DLC, pay to win, locking content behind ads or money, basically having to pay to get more content out of the game. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. And one of the most egregious examples I can remember fairly recently was the whole thing with Star Wars Battlefront 2, when they were making that. It was like a really heavy gambling system, and it was kind of like pay to win, and EA caught so much shit for that they had to go back and redo the way the loot boxes were done in that game. And a few people have made this point. Shout out to Angry Joe. He was one of the most huge proponents of this, and it's a very simple concept, but it's voting with your wallet. And I think in the video game community we don't do this nearly enough. I think another really egregious example of this would be Call of Duty and all the bullshit that they've done over the past decade. With the last Modern Warfare that came out and all of the skins that just got absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you're fucking elbow dropping people as Nicki Minaj, and you're playing Beavis and Butthead and all this bullshit, and people got tired of it, right? And that was an instance in which they voted with their wallet. A lot of those people went over to play the new Battlefield. Now, I don't know if that player base got retained. I'm sure it didn't. I'm sure EA found a way to shoot themselves in the foot, as they often do. But that was a very prominent example of people voting with their wallets. This is something that we as a gaming community, we are getting better at. But we kind of set ourselves up for failure, and we walk into these things. Physical copies of games being gone, we can be mad at the publishers and the developers all we want, but this is in large part our fault because we vote with our wallets. We tell them it's okay to hit us over the head with crazy amounts of DLC. It's okay to just continuously delay the release of video games. It's okay to release half-cooked video games, games that need to be patched later, to lock half of it behind DLC. We tell them this by voting with our wallets. So when they do these things to us and we pay for them anyways, we are at fault. We share a large part of the blame. And so going forward with this, and Angry Joe said the same thing about this, it is very important to vote with your wallet. This is unacceptable. And the way they're doing this, what's the quote? You will own nothing and be happy, which I got a little article that I want to get to in this video pertaining to that particular quote, because I was always curious about the origin of that. But the quote, you will own nothing and be happy, that plays into this. They are going to give you a license to play this game digitally, but you don't own that game, and at any time they can pull that license from you. So you're paying the same, and eventually, let's be real, video games will increase in price for a non-hard copy, for a non-physical copy of the game. You can get locked out of that game at any point. So you've paid more for a game that you don't have access to 24/7. You're paying to rent a game, essentially. It's kind of ironic because back in the day, you would go to Blockbuster or a Hollywood Video to rent a game. Then that went away. Now we got digital copies of games, and now we're back to renting games, but it's even worse for us because you have to pay full price, and at any time they can just pull your access to it. So this is crazy, and this is definitely something that, again, you need to vote with your wallets on this. This cannot fly. And if us as a community, as a gaming community, hell, any community, because they're going to do this to everything. They're going to do this to movies. They're going to do this to everything. They're already doing it to music. Everybody uses Spotify and Apple Music. You don't own physical copies of music. This is happening all across the board. And sure, some of it is convenience, but this will ultimately just be used to police the content we get. We're paying more to have limited access to the content we're paying for. So it's very imperative that you vote with your wallet on this, man. Be very methodical in what you pay for with this.
Are looking for a new solution because this isn't it for what they want.
I need to get a stick of carpe. That dude's firing with his advertisement.
Because there is so much to be said about the convenience of being able to buy digital. Just download it. You know, you don't have to track it down, a physical copy, that kind of thing. But there really still does seem to be an appetite for physical discs and to have that physical copy. I mean, this was a debate that we were just talking about last week with Grand Theft Auto 6 and that release and some of the controversy over that, not being a physical copy with that. And so it's an interesting dynamic, Khalif.
And to that point, I'm going to try not to stop it too much here because I got a couple things I want to talk about in this video. But to that point, I legitimately think that the big publishers in the video game industry were specifically waiting for Grand Theft Auto because they knew that Grand Theft Auto is a game in which they can really change the rules of things, that the gaming community would be okay with anything Rockstar does as long as they get Grand Theft Auto 6. It's why there was talk of it releasing at, $80-$90, and they've delayed it God knows how many times because they know they can do this. And they were just seeing how much we would take, and we're still taking it. I guarantee when GTA 6 comes out, it's going to shatter sales. After all of this, it'll still shatter sales. And I'm not going to lie, I'm excited to play it. But again, what I just said about voting with your wallet, all the things they've done to us, this game is going to come out and it's still going to shatter the records.
Talking about it being 2026, so much is digital, but still being folks who want that physical copy.
Yeah, folks who are, the biggest kind of conversation around all of this is around what do you actually own? If you're given a digital code for a game, you can't resell that. If you're down on your luck and you're like, hey, I need to trade this thing in, or if you have a friend who just wants to play a thing that you have and they don't own it, you can't do that with a digital game at this.
Exactly. You are paying the same and eventually more for way less access to that game. That's a very important thing to understand. I think people aren't really, it's a year off, so they're not really considering it. They're not giving it that much thought. A lot of younger gamers probably don't even care because this is kind of what they're used to, but you are paying the same and eventually more for way less access to the game you're buying.
So seeing this uprising of animosity towards the practice is reasonable for folks who are worried about not only is the digital future going to be real, but there are some concrete actual problems with the ways that digital media gets kind of shared, especially when you think about U.S. infrastructure. Not everyone has great internet, rising costs of what it's going to have for electricity. There's so many different avenues in where this can be problematic, and it winds up being something that consumers are going to really be worrying about kind of moving in the future.
What does this mean for cost? How do you think we will see this playing out when it comes to the cost of video games? We've seen costs of video games already go up. There have been, there are obviously costs of production to a physical disc, but it also seems like many times these digital copies retain a higher price longer than maybe picking up a used copy of a game, or even buying a game on, finding a new copy even on sale. So
that is a terrific point. I didn't even think about that. You could go find a physical, like if a game bombs, if you're active in the gaming community, then you know what games are good and you know what games suck. Now, of course, you have casual gamers who just want to play what they want to play. They're going to buy every year's Madden. They're going to buy every year's Call of Duty, whatever. But anybody who has any time in the gaming community, they know what games to buy and what games not to buy. And a lot of times you could find those games, a physical copy of them somewhere cheap, because the gaming community knows not to buy them. But with this change to completely digital, a lot of times you will see this same shit game on sale online at whatever, $39.99, $49.99, and it never drops, where you could go to a GameStop, hell, a Walmart value bin sometimes, and you would find these games for $10-15. So that's a great point.
What's going to mean for the cost of video games?
Ooh, I mean, I think the cost is not going down. I think one of the conversations that we thought of when the initial movement towards the digital space was happening was you'd seen in the PC space, platform holders like Steam and Valve be able to have these huge sales that they would have every year, where you would get a pretty big discount on the games that you were looking forward to or hadn't gotten a chance to play. But for consoles, it winds up being a very different landscape, where that has never really happened in that space. Prices have been continuing to go up, while also not having any real avenue for sales in those mediums or in those spaces. So I think, the idea of the $80 game is now going to be the floor, and we may see those prices even go up. I mean, the conversation around what would you have been paying for your games in terms of inflation if you were buying them, back in the day, and seeing how that inflation has grown has been an underlying undercurrent of that discussion. But I think what has now moved into the space is the floor used to be 60, now that's moved to 70, and now it's kind of moving towards 80 as being the thing that you're going to have to spend if you want to play your games these days.
And so what does this mean for the future of video games and consoles? Is it still even really fair to call it a console at this point, when you're talking digital only? And just a lot of questions about what this means for the investment. I mean, PlayStation 5, which we're showing right there, not cheap. It's still not, even years after its release. And so when you're talking about folks, investing money in an expensive console, whether it's the PS5 or whether it's a future PS6, I mean, what does this mean for that in the future of whether people see the value in doing that?
Your digital hobby is going to be the most expensive hobby if you're a video gamer at this point, and I think that's where most of us have landed in this space with understanding.
And understand this too, with everything that's been going on geopolitically, with tariffs being imposed left and right, You know, PlayStation 5s and PlayStation 6s, if they ever come, there's no telling what the pricing on these things is going to be, right? It's likely that PlayStation 5s go up a little bit in cost, not go down or stay the same, go up. And as far as PlayStation 6s go, I mean, who knows? I heard that, you know, it's costing them around $1,000 to make one. It costs them $1,000 to make one. So I don't even know. Like, who knows what happens with that? But the way things are going around the world right now is going to impact this as well. So you're going to be paying more, again, for a game that you have less access to, and potentially more for the console as well.
That we've not seen this happen before. Usually the trend is over the life cycle of a console, those prices usually go down, and we've seen the opposite happen where both console makers, both Xbox and PlayStation, have added at least $100 plus to your gaming systems, with now the PlayStation 5 Pro costing around $900, with a PlayStation 6 on the horizon, which most folks are, you know, forecasting as being at least $1,000 at the minimum, and I'm probably in that $1,200 camp for where that probably is going to land. So that winds up moving all of your hobby into a much more expensive space when most folks don't have that much disposable income anymore to be able to kind of lend towards gaming in these ways, with the trend moving.
That's right, because with the way the economy is, with the way inflation is, with the way things are working out geopolitically, the price of this console goes up, but the average American doesn't even have that much disposable income anymore. They're paying way more of that towards just living, rent, groceries, maintenance on the car, etc.
That is not going to be going down anytime soon. It's probably just going to get worse with rising silicone issues, rising RAM because of AI, so many different parts of that ecosystem that are moving in that direction. So it's going to be an expensive time to be a gamer for sure.
Well, and especially with concerns over, you know, the lifespan of these things anyway, when it comes to kind of planned obsolescence and things like that. Is it worth dropping that much?
Shout out to Lupe Fiasco, bro. I literally didn't know what planned obsolescence is until I heard it in a song by him. I would recommend you do some research on it, because a lot of people don't know what it is. I didn't know what it is till fairly recently.
But these are all things that you know, I think are really coming to a head right now.
Ooh, the real answer is, how much are you willing to pay to play? I think that winds up landing the plane there. It's
vote with your wallet.
How much do you really care about the hobby? How much are you looking in terms of future-facing technology? But what I do think is that what we'll see in this generation, in this gap generation, will be most folks will stay on the platforms that they're currently on and may not potentially move up. We won't see people going to Helix as much as we thought they might be going to. We won't see people going and buying and running out of PlayStation 6, except if you're an early adopter in those ways and really wanting.
And sorry, I keep stopping. I'm pretty passionate about this because I'm a gamer, but it also just speaks to a larger concept and a larger dynamic going on in America that is kind of just fucking making me sick and a lot of people sick. And that just is like this late stage capitalism and greed is just ridiculous. There is already studies showing that people are actually going backward and playing older games. They're playing their Xbox games, their 360s, their PS2s, their PS3s. So when this is implemented, that is going to be even more prominent, especially because now you have another generation of consoles that's considered the older consoles. So it's still going to be people going back and playing their 360s, their PS2s, hell, their GameCubes, N64s, whatever. But then it'll also be the PS4. It'll be the Xbox Ones, which when it released, it really wasn't that popular. But now, after this, I bet you people are going to look at Xbox Ones in a slightly different light too. They're going to go back. They're not going to keep going forward to these new consoles.
The best kind of tech that will be out there to offer. So yeah, I think a lot of folks are going to stay on platform on what they're currently playing now, and hoping that some prices go down somewhere down the line.
85% of PS5 and PS4 game sales were digital in 2025. Just 3% of Sony's 2025 revenue came from physical games. And again, like, as far as the corporations go, they're making what they think is a logical move following the numbers. It's an analytical decision and it makes sense. But that's why I say you got to vote with your wallet, because we are walking ourselves into a trap here.
But that won't happen until probably way into the middle or even end of the.
That's an interesting stat, though. In 2024, 82% of PS5 consoles sold are disc edition. So most people are buying the consoles for hard copies of games. Nintendo's first year where digital sales overtook physical was last year. So,
console cycle, if it happens at all.
It's interesting, Khalif, just how the industry has changed. I mean, at one point, Sony kind of using having physical discs as a selling point for their consoles, and now seeing, how little of their revenue comes from physical games. It really is just an interesting shift in consumer habits. You like it or not. I mean, you can't argue with those facts.
No, you can't argue with the facts. I mean, personally, I haven't bought a physical game in a very long time, almost probably in a console generation and a half, because of that convenience. But I know so many folks who are in the preservation space are worried about this. Again, the larger discussion about, like, what do you own versus what do you not own. And there's a part of it that is, you want to be able to pass some of that stuff down to a younger generation and say, hey, son, daughter, child, here's the things that I used to enjoy when I was your age, or, you when I was younger. And those folks may not even have the ability to go do that because the hardware will fail at some point. And we will see some changes in that respect. But I do think this does give a space for Xbox and Microsoft, which has been going through a ton of upheaval and some changes, to kind of maybe decide that they want to go physical in a lot of different ways. And that might be a boon for them specifically, to pull in parts of their audience in a way that they might have been losing them with a lot of the changes that we've seen over the past year. So this is going to be a very interesting kind of, new definition of what consoles are going to wind up being, while also giving us new understandings of where the floor and ceiling are going to be for a hobby that we all enjoy.
That's good.
I'd be surprised if Microsoft went the opposite direction and went physical. I think they'll just follow suit and just try to optimize and get as much profit out of this as they can. And if Sony's going to lead the way by going full digital, they probably will do the same. The main issue with it is, I think that if you gave people unfettered, unlimited access to these games at any time, even if it's like 2 decades from now, and if they buy the game and it's strictly digital, but they can access it at any time, people wouldn't have a problem with it. That the issue comes where you're buying games and your access is severely limited. That's the problem, because you're not getting your money's worth. You're paying more and you're not getting your money's worth. It's cut and dry. That's what it is. Shout out to them. Let's get into, real quick before I end this video, because I just want to go over. So my screen's kind of fucked up, but this right here talks about, the obstacles in the video game development industry. And just real quick, it says major AAA budgets often exceed $300 million, and industry data reveals that average development budgets have doubled since 2015. This surge is primarily driven by prolonged development timelines, larger team sizes, and the graphical arms race to meet extreme player expectations. So a lot of these developers, they seek to make the best product they can, but they have to satisfy investors. And so that's where that kind of brutal loop goes, where they need more to make the game. They get rushed. So even though they've taken all this money to make the game, they still have to meet quotas and deadlines and bottom lines. So they'll take all this money to still make a half-cooked game. It's because they got, suits and ties to satisfy. So that's where you end up getting with these crazy inflated budgets. So, I don't know. Like I said, you just got to vote where it counts. That's all we can do. Don't let this get out of hand. It already is. By 2028, we will have no physical copies of games as far as PlayStation is concerned. It's already out of hand. So it's imperative that you vote with your wallet. And last thing before I end this video, just on a side note, because I was super curious about this quote. The "you will own nothing and will be happy" quote. It came from an essay from the World Economic Forum in 2016 by a Danish politician named Ida Auken. It was a speculative scenario about a possible future of sharing economy, not a declaration of intent. So when the dude initially made this quote, I think his heart and mind were in a place of kind of like a, I don't want to say like socialistic or communistic, whatever you want to call it, but he was thinking how to benefit everybody, a shared economy. Little did he know that corporations were one step ahead of him, and they were like, yeah, we agree, you will own nothing and be happy, but it ain't the way this guy's talking about. And so when he said it, it wasn't, with malicious intent. He was thinking, from what it would seem, legitimately for the betterment of the everyday man. But again, as you can see, late stage capitalism and corporate greed has taken that in a completely different direction. You are now in this weird place where you literally are owning nothing. And not only that, you're locked behind subscriptions for everything. So when he made this essay at the World Economic Forum, I don't think he knew what was coming. Maybe he did, but I definitely don't think he meant this when he said you will own nothing and be happy. But leave it to corporations to take it the opposite way, because now we in fact own nothing. Are we happy though? Yeah. But anyways, this is a long video, bro. Sorry I was going for a little bit, but I really wanted to get into this. I'm pretty passionate about this because, again, it speaks to not just the gaming community, just this overall dynamics that's happening, particularly in America. So something to definitely keep an eye on, and I don't know, just watch how this develops and continue to vote with your wallet wherever possible, man. But that's it. Like I said, sorry for the long one. I appreciate y'all. I'm going to catch y'all on the next one. Later.